Hi all, I hope you're doing well. This is a little update video for those that are attending or thinking about attending the October UnchartedX trip to Egypt. I wanted to run through some of the logistics around this trip, kind of give you a little bit of an idea what to expect, as well as to announce a couple of small changes to it and just updates for everybody that is coming or thinking about coming. First of all, I do want to say that there are a few spots available still on this trip for various reasons. It was sold out. I mean, some people, obviously, with the global travel situation being what it is, some people have cancelled. There are some spots available if you're interested. At this point, it's really coming down to who is willing to pay a deposit, because we're nearly at the point where the full balance is due, so that we can actually use that money to start booking hotels and making all of the hard reservations that we need to for this trip group in October. So if you're interested, please do take a look down. It's on my website. All the registration details are there. It's unchartedx.com/tour. The first thing I wanted to say right off the bat is that I'm very happy to say that Kyle and Russ Allen, the brothers of the Serpent, will be joining us on this trip as co-hosts or as special guests. These guys are great. They're good friends of mine. You may know them from their own podcast, the Brothers of the Serpent podcast. They're also the hosts of Randall Carlson's excellent Cosmographia podcast, and they have a whole YouTube channel. I've done a bunch of events with them. I've done a bunch of videos with them as well. You can find all that on my channel. Look for the swapcasts with Kyle and Russ. They're great. They're great guys. They'll be excellent on this trip. It's their first trip to Egypt, so I'm kind of personally really looking forward to showing them some of the sites. They're very knowledgeable, though. They've been researching and talking with authors and really looking into the ancient Egyptian topics for decades now. So, really looking forward to having them join us on this trip. In terms of a few logistics, just so you know what to expect, let's hit these one at a time. We'll go through the weather, we'll talk about COVID, we'll talk about airports, vendors, what to expect, what the experience will be like, and then maybe we'll just touch on the itinerary a little bit in this video. First of all, the weather. It's October. It's always generally can be pretty warm during the day in the sun. It's in the desert. I'd expect that to be the case here as well. You don't really need to be bundled up during the day. In fact, having a hat and some sunscreen is probably going to be highly recommended. At least in the sun. I know some places, some days get warmer than others. Other days can be quite pleasant. It may be a little cooler at night. So, for example, when we're cruising on the Nile, there might be a bit of a breeze. It can cool down a little bit at night. So, having a sweater or a jumper, as we'd say in Australia, is probably a very good thing. Just to have with you. One other thing that's worth noting is it's bringing a torch or a headlamp is probably a good idea as well, because when we go into the pyramids, we go underground, or we go into some of these structures, sometimes the lighting's not the best. Cell phone torches are sufficient usually, but having an actual torch or a headlamp is well recommended. In terms of footwear, nothing too crazy. Just running shoes or joggers is fine. There's not going to be a whole lot of walking around. There is a little bit of physical activity required for getting into some of the pyramids and structures. For those of us doing the Osiris shaft, obviously there's some climbing up and down of ladders, but at no point really are we going to be walking miles and miles or anything like that. The other thing I wanted to touch on here is all of the stuff around COVID and the pandemic. COVID testing is required both to get into Egypt and coming back. Now, I've traveled internationally a few times during this pandemic. I can tell you how it's gone for me and what I've done to deal with it. For going to Egypt, I believe that PCR tests up to 72 hours before you board going to Egypt. So what I've done going to Egypt, I've used a service called thecovidconsultants.com. They provide at-home self-PCR tests with a guaranteed 24-hour turnaround. So, it costs a couple $100. It's not super cheap, but they'll send you a test. You sort of, do it to yourself, put the thing in a little test tube, send it back to them via FedEx Express. They provide all of that stuff, and they guarantee a turnaround within 24 hours of your results. So that makes it easy to know that you'll get those results before, in time, before you have to get on that flight. Sometimes getting tests done with PCR tests, they can take several days at other labs and things like that. The other option is the antigen tests. I'm going to be doing this for the trip back home because the US accepts antigen tests up to 72 hours from when you get on that flight. So a negative antigen test is good for 72 hours before you board your flight coming back to the US. And again, the airlines are the ones who will check this. You can get tested in Egypt. In fact, anyone that needs to be tested, which I imagine most people will, we will arrange for that. The Komet School, that'll happen while we're in Egypt. But me personally, I'm going to bring some antigen tests with me. You can buy these, and the way this works, there's a number of different options where you can get these, but you can just do a video link over Skype or with a mobile device. They'll watch you do the test. You get the result right there and then, and if you show it that it says negative, and then they send you the piece of paper or the PDF to print out, giving you that negative result. That's kind of how that works, and I think that can be as little as $20 a test. I'm still looking into it, but we'll have multiple options for this on the way home. Of course, get tested wherever you want. These are just my recommendations, how I'll be doing it when I go there. And of course, if you need to get the test done in Egypt by Egyptians, that's fine. The Komet School is well used to doing that, and there's plenty of services to make that happen. And they'll make sure that happens for everybody that needs it in Egypt on the way back. So no concerns there. Now, while it requires COVID testing to get into Egypt and then back to the States, the nice thing about Egypt is really, in my experience, and certainly from the people that live there, it's not an issue while we're there. Like, no one really wears masks. You'll see masks at the airport, and you might see some masks on people at the major hotels, but you don't have to wear, like, we're generally, in the past when we've done this, nobody's wearing masks. Like, the general population isn't wearing them. You're not required at the masks. We'll probably we're not required at the sites. We might be asked if there's a museum. It's a possibility that we'll have to have them on there, but even then you'll see the guards and the people that are insisting it are wearing masks around their chins. I mean, it's just, it's pretty much a non-issue. In fact, on trips in the past, people have kind of described going to Egypt as something of a COVID holiday. So that should be a relief and just make life easier for everybody. All right, so when you get to Egypt, flying in, there will be a car service or a greeting service available, waiting for you at the airport. I think pretty much before you even go through customs, you should see somebody with your name, and they'll help you walk through customs and do all that type of thing. I do want to warn everyone about going back to the airport at the end of the trip. Make sure that you'll probably get people that want to help you with the bags and take your bag for you and take you over and show you where security is and all that type of thing. They will ask you for money. In fact, a lot of those guys like to make sure that they'll take every last Egyptian pound that's in your wallet. In that case, I generally just don't let them take my bag, and I just walk myself to security. It's up to you. I'd recommend doing that. It's not like the airport's difficult to figure out. It's like an airport anywhere in the world, more or less. Which does bring up the topic of money. US dollars are accepted in a lot of places and with a lot of vendors. Just make sure you keep an eye and a mind to what the exchange rate is for the Egyptian pound. But you can also change money at the hotels. You can do it at the airport. And if people need to, we can always arrange to take you to a vendor or a money change place to change some dollars. I'd recommend bringing some US dollars so that you can change it to local currency and use that when you need to. And of course, there are ATM machines. If you have that little plus symbol, you can get local currency out with ATM cards, that type of thing. All of that works. So, then when it comes to vendors and shopping, when we're on these sites, particularly at Giza and the bigger sites, it's quite likely that we'll have vendors around us that will be sort of trying to offer you services and just merchandise. I call it the endless opportunities for commerce. There's going to be plenty of that. You don't need to engage with them while we're actually on the sites. Yusuf and we like to try and support these guys. Like, they depend on the tourism industry. And they sell some good stuff. What we tend to do is at the end of when we're at the site, we go through the site at the end of our visit, and everybody's back on the bus or we're all in one place. Yusuf will get their goods from them, and he'll bring it on the bus and show it to everybody, and also tell you what a fair price for it is. And that way you can buy whatever you want, knowing that it's a fair price, because bartering is absolutely a part of the commerce industry that surrounds a lot of the tourism. So do barter. Make sure that these guys are going to give you a higher price than say a local would pay, for sure. And so you don't always have to want to pay sticker price for things. Make sure you do barter. And if you're ever curious or you want to know what a fair price is, then ask Yusuf or ask Muhammad or ask any of the local sort of guides with us that we'll have. They can certainly help you out with all of that. And there'll be plenty of opportunity to go shopping and buy stuff while we're there. All right, and lastly, I just wanted to go through really quickly, run through the itinerary to give you an idea of what to expect. So the first thing up front is that we've had a change of hotel in Giza. So we're no longer at the Steigenberger Pyramids Resort, which is I've stayed at before. It's a fine hotel. But them, as well as some other of the major hotels in that area, aren't accepting large group bookings for whatever reason. Now, we found an alternative hotel that's still a 5-star hotel. Excellent hotel by all accounts. I think if you've been registered for the trip, Ildi has sent you some details about this and sent some images. It looks like a really nice place. We're going to suss out the area just to see if there's any good restaurants nearby. Generally, the food in the hotel's pretty good. So that's no issue. I think it's going to be probably a nicer hotel, probably a more modern hotel than a Steigenberger in any case. So that's no big drama. It's just something we had to adjust to. But the tour starts on the evening of the 16th. So whenever you arrive, the welcome dinner will be, I think, 6:30, 7 o'clock, something like that in the hotel. So we'll have a welcome dinner and introductions. We'll all get to meet each other and say hello. And then we really kick off the next day, which is the Sunday, I think the 17th, which is a full day at Dashur. And this kind of is a good way to kickstart the tour because it's two of the biggest and most interesting pyramids you'll ever see. It's the Red Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid. The next day, on the Monday the 18th, we're flying up to Upper Egypt to go up and start our trip in our tour of Upper Egypt. But we'll also be visiting the museum. Now, if it's open, the Grand Egyptian Museum, we will go and see that. My suspicion is it won't yet be open. Unfortunately, it seems like Egypt's really delaying the opening of this museum. I think they're trying to wait and see what happens with the global pandemic. I know they want royalty and presidents and people. They want to make a huge event of the opening. So that's more or less been the reason for them delaying the opening of this museum. That said, if it's shut, we'll go to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, in Tahrir Square or nearby. Just a wonderful museum full of incredible pieces. It pretty much is my favorite museum in the world. I actually like the fact that it's just an older style museum. There's a lot to see there. It's absolutely worth the visit as well. Then we begin our tour of Upper Egypt, which is just amazing. I've only been there once or twice myself now. Starting with Luxor Temple. We'll get an evening visit at Luxor Temple. We'll also go to Dendera and visit the Temple of Hathor there. There's just a tremendous amount to see on both of these sites. And then we continue on in Upper Egypt with our trip to Abydos. We'll also visit the Assyrian, the first of our special permissions. We'll be entering into the Assyrian, which is normally not allowed. You're allowed to look at it from up and around the structure, but we'll have permission to go down into the Assyrian and wander around in there. These are 70, 80-ton massive single-piece blocks of granite. This huge megalithic structure that was once underground next to the Temple of Seti I. So after that, we'll be staying in Luxor for those couple of nights, and then on the Thursday, we check into the Nile cruise. Now, I've been very much looking forward to this part of the trip. The last time I did this was with Graham Hancock, I think back in 2015. This is going to be a great experience, cruising down the Nile, I think 3 or 4 nights on the cruise ship. We'll be stopping at lots of different sites along the way. Karnak Temple, just a massive site full of obelisks and the remnants of these 1,000, 1,200-ton single-piece statues. It's an incredible place. On Monday, I think the October 25th, we wrap up our tour of Upper Egypt with a visit to Philae Temple as well as the quarry at Aswan. Now, of course, the quarry has the famous unfinished obelisk in the ground, the 1,200-ton obelisk. It also has a number of other features. I'm always fascinated getting to the quarry. There's a tremendous amount to learn and to be seen there. So once we're back in Cairo, we get straight back into the special permissions, and we have a full day to go visit Abu Ghraib and Abu Sir. Just remarkable sites. I pretty much insist that they're part of any tour that I'd run. These are sites that have been closed to the general public for well and truly more than 100 years. It requires special permission to go and visit them. When you get there, you'll pretty much see why, because they're just chock-a-block full of signs of advanced technology, just drill holes, basalt saw cuts. A lot of my videos really focus heavily on the evidence that's at sites like Abu Sir. Then on October 27th, we get to what I think is just probably going to be one of the major highlights of the trip, certainly for me. We used to do this at the front of the trips, and I'm really happy we're doing it a little bit further into the trip, just so we all can get warmed up and into the spirit of what we're going to see. But the 27th will be the day that we get to Saqqara. Now, there's a lot to see at Saqqara. There's the Step Pyramid, There's a couple of other pyramids. There's the Winis pyramid with the pyramid texts. We'll get to have a look inside the step pyramid, and we're also going to go to the Serapeum. Now, I know a lot of people are probably looking forward to this the most. I certainly am. But yeah, we should have a great enough time to get down into the Serapeum to fully explore it. Then, as we get towards the end of the tour, we get a day out of Cairo to the south to the Lahoun, the Hawara, and the Maidum pyramids down there near the Fayum region. We're going to visit a few of these different pyramids. Of course, the Maidum pyramid we'll be able to enter. There's also Mastaba 17 at Maidum for those of you that are feeling very adventurous. This is probably the most adventurous spot to get into, other than maybe the Osiris shaft. You do kind of have to get down. We go through a robber's shaft, a robber's tunnel, I guess, to get into this megalithic chamber beneath Mastaba 17. Does require a bit of crawling along. It's probably not for everybody, but for those that do want to get in there, they certainly can. And then we'll also visit the Hawara site, which is where I think the labyrinth is. And in fact, there's some evidence that they found the Great Lost Labyrinth of Egypt at Hawara. And then Lahoun, which was a site I only had the chance to visit for the first time last year, but it is just incredible. It has the most precisely made granite box that anybody has really measured in any detail in ancient Egypt that's beneath this pyramid structure inside a granite room. Really interesting little artifact. I have a video on this one. Also have videos on the pyramids at Maidum as well as Mastaba 17 if you want to check those out before we go on the trip. And then finally, we've saved kind of the best thing for last. The last day of the official tour is our day at Giza. Now, this will include the trip into the Osiris shaft for those of you that want to do that excursion. I'd highly recommend it. It's an awesome example of what is beneath the ground at Giza. There's 3 levels that go down, I think 110 feet into the bedrock. And then, of course, we'll spend a lot of time walking around Giza, and then at the end of the day, we'll have our 2-hour private access, all chambers open, visit to the Great Pyramid. So we'll have the whole thing to ourselves. We'll be able to fully explore the subterranean chamber, the whole Grand Gallery, Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber. This is very much an experience for people that haven't been in there. It's really wonderful to be able to get into all of these chambers and to fully take our time and explore the structure. It's absolutely worth it, and it's a great way to end the trip. I think that's where the main tour ends. After that, we do have a 1-day extension where we'll go out to Tanis and Bastet, which is up in the north. It takes a couple hours to drive up there, but these sites are well worth the visit. Tanis is just an enigma of a site. It's been represented and called different things throughout time. It's mentioned in the Bible. It's also mentioned in the Indiana Jones movies, although as far as we know, we haven't really found the map room yet. But this was a huge megalithic site. There's the remnants of just a forest of obelisks, remnants of these, again, 1,000-ton single-piece granite statues. There's a lot to see at Tanis. There's a lot of history at Tanis. And then the Temple of Bastet is nearby to that. Also a site that likely was spread over kilometers back when it was fully intact. And now it's something of a granite graveyard with an outdoor museum. But it has some of the very best examples of single-piece granite columns that I've ever seen. Like some of just the most incredible work and in fluted columns and in stonework that I've ever seen. So again, I've only been to these places once in the past myself, so I'm greatly looking forward to getting back there. All right, well, that wraps up this little brief update video about the upcoming Egypt trip, at least as brief as I can be. I'm really excited to get back to Egypt. I find myself very much looking forward to it. I hope everybody else is keen to get there as well. I know a lot of people have been kind of locked down and stuck in one place for quite a while now with the world situation the way that it is, but it is possible to travel, and even though it's a bit of a pain in the butt to get out there and travel, the rewards are out there. I think the crowds are going to be still very low compared to where they normally are in Egypt. Tourism is starting up again slowly, but it's nowhere near the heights that it has been. The same situation was true in Peru, and certainly last year in Egypt when I was there. So I still think it's an excellent opportunity to see these sites, and a massive thank you to everybody that is brave enough to get out there and travel and come on these trips. Like I said, I really do think that the experience will be worth it in the end, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing all of you in Egypt in a few weeks. Cheers.